Hi, 6th grade. Since I can now work from home, you get to see some of my Christmas decorations. Here is my, sorry, this is going to be jerky, but anyway, here's my big nativity scene on top of the piano. Here's some different Santas that I have. The ones that I really like are these right here with the years on them. My grandfather used to work at a furniture store, and one year they gave that away, and so he got to customers who bought stuff, so he got some of them and brought them home. But my absolute favorite is I love to collect nutcrackers. Last time one of my kids counted, I think they counted that I have 40. I have my great big nutcracker over here. Then some of my faves, of course I like the rocking horse, the musical one right there, that Hope is kind of a musical one, Nutcracker Collector, Days Till Christmas, I'm off. I love the nutcrackers stacked on top of each other, and then the little toy maker one. So, let me turn it around and get me set up, and now let's talk actual history. So we have thoroughly discussed the Constitutional Convention and the compromises that led to the Constitution, and kind of some about the Constitution and all of that. So let's talk homework going forward here. And let me remember what today is. Today is Tuesday. I'm making this video for you all to watch on Wednesday. So, sorry guys, I stay confused as to the days anymore. Today your homework is Skill Sheet 29. Skill Sheet 29 is just 10 questions. It tells you to go to the beginning of your chapter 7, 8, and 9 and look at the timelines. If you look at the first page of each chapter, 7, 8, and 9, you see this timeline here. This is where you're going to find the answers. It's these timelines at the beginnings of chapter 7, 8, and 9. Now, I don't care how you do this. If you can write neatly and take a good picture so I can read it, take a good picture and attach it. If you are struggling with that, then get a Word document, Google document, and just at the top type Skill Sheet 29, your name, and then 1 and the answer. I was too lazy, I'll be honest, to make yet another quiz on LMS and do it that way. Because I'm making so many Blasted quizzes. So, I'm going to leave this one up to you. As far as it goes, like I said, you find the answers at the beginning of the timelines, at the beginning of chapter 7, 8, and 9. 1, easy. Obvious what you're going for. 2, it's a yes or no answer. And make sure you're paying attention. Quakers before Great Awakening, yes or no. 3 is a year. 4, it says 2 battles, so make sure you have 2 answers. 5, just an answer. 6, the answer is going to be before or after. Did the Puritans found Massachusetts Bay Colony before or after Roger Williams founded Providence, Rhode Island? So you got to look at the timeline and figure out if Massachusetts Bay was before or after Providence, Rhode Island. 7, just an answer. 8, just a year. 9 is another before or after. You're going to look and see. Was Georgia founded before or after the Boston Tea Party? And then 10, you got to do a little math there to figure out how many years were between those two things. So that's Skill Sheet 29. Let's see here. Yeah, and this is the other reason why I didn't want to make an LMS quiz for you to do the skill sheet on, because I'd already made one for Quiz 18 and I didn't want you all to get confused. Quiz 18 was supposed to be a map review. You all are ahead. You've made it through like the halfway mark of the material. But you're not really ahead because I add a lot, like all the stuff we added with the Constitution. Anyway, at that halfway mark, you're supposed to have a review map quiz. Basically, I turned it into another skill sheet. So Quiz 18 is basically like another skill sheet. So I've got the Quiz 18 attached, and on the Quiz 18 answer sheet, you're just going to type where all those places are. So those are the 2 assignments that you have to turn in today. Then, between, you'll do Simple Solution 65 today, you'll do Simple Solution 66 tomorrow, and then you'll check the 2 simple solutions tomorrow. Between now, Wednesday, and Friday, you need to read 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3. I'm going to kind of leave it up to you as to how you read those three sections. And then on Friday, you'll have a quiz on 9.1, 9.2, 9.3. It'll be open book. So this is maybe the only video I make this week. I haven't decided yet. But let's look at chapter 9. So if you don't have your book, grab it. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. It's up to you to read it. I'm just going to kind of hit some highlights. First thing I want you to notice on chapter 9 is it starts in 1775. So this chapter actually starts before the Declaration of Independence, before the Revolutionary War. So we are now kind of stopping with chapter 8 and going back in a little bit in time, and then going back forward. So this chapter will overlap with previous chapters. Because Daniel Boone was exploring and establishing the Wilderness Road in 1775, while the Revolutionary War was going on. Not going to spend a lot of time talking about 9.1 because, or at least the beginning of 9.1, because it's about Daniel Boone and Boonesboro. I figure y'all know that. We're sitting here in the middle of Winchester, Kentucky, right down the road from Fort Boonesboro. Then page 150, Northwest, settling the Northwest Territory. After the War for Independence, the U.S. gained the Northwest Territory. Now, this is the one thing I want to point out. Kentucky at this time is considered west because it's west of the Appalachian Mountains. At this time, anything west of the Appalachian Mountains is considered west. I know when you think of Kentucky, you don't think west. Ohio is considered a northwestern state. Same thing. When you think Ohio, I don't think northwestern. But at this time, it was a northwestern state. Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, and part of Minnesota. One of the most important laws passed is the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, which basically guaranteed that the freedoms that the states had, the territories would have. Freedom of religion, outlawed slavery, guaranteed fair treatment of American Indians, and provided for a trial by jury for all citizens.
Ohio.
Go. Then it talks about moving to Ohio, and that Ohio was the first region to be settled in the Northwest Territory. It talks about the Erie Canal. One way people later journeyed to Ohio was by the Erie Canal, which was the first major man-made canal in the U.S. It connected Lake Erie with the Hudson River, making it much easier to travel. And you can see a picture there of the Erie Canal in a flat. You get the top picture is the flatboat, the bottom picture is Erie Canal. Then it talks about new schools. Because, now we're a country. That means we've got to start setting up schools. And we've got to start getting books that teach American history. Because up to this point, there hasn't been really any American history because America is still a very young country. There's dictionaries for other languages, but there's not an American dictionary. And our language is a hodgepodge of other languages. And it's English, but it's not exactly the same as English like it's spoken in England. That's still true even today. The English called the trunk of their car a boot. So as you read through new schools and school books, it's going to talk about Noah Webster, who came up with the blue-backed speller, and the American Dictionary. It's going to talk about McGuffey, who developed reading books for the school. It's going to talk about the fact that it was one-room schoolhouses. One-room schoolhouses were around for a long time. My grandfather was born in 1914, and he attended a one-room schoolhouse here in Clark County in Winchester up until 7th grade, and they skipped 8th grade. Because one-room schoolhouses, if you were in 1st grade, you got to hear what was being taught to the 2nd graders and the 3rd graders and the 4th graders and the 5th graders and 7th graders and the 8th graders. And so by the time you got to 7th grade, you'd heard all the material that had been taught to the 8th graders being taught for 7 years. They didn't have kindergarten then. Anyway, and the way it worked at that time when my grandfather was in 7th grade, so that would have been the 1920s, is they had to take a test to pass from elementary school into the high school. And so all the boys in my grandfather's 7th grade class was like, let's try to take the test, see if we can skip 8th grade. They all passed it, were able to skip 8th grade and go on to high school and did great. So I always think that's interesting. Now, as I say, every time we start a new chapter in the 6th grade book, the 6th grade book goes over American history very, very, very briefly, much more condensed than the 8th grade. So what we're talking about in chapter 9 is like 3 different chapters in the 8th grade book. But chapter 9 goes on talking about the circuit riding preachers with Francis Asbury. He's the dude that the Asbury College in Lexington is named after. Talks about Peter Cartwright, one of the best-known circuit riding preachers. Richard Allen, who started the African... Oh, I lost the name of it. The African Episcopalian... No. I'll come back to that because I can't find the name of the church. And it's a very long, wordy one. Oh, here it is. African Methodist Episcopal Church. Talked about camp meetings just very, very briefly. Here you'll talk about camp meetings more in 8th grade. But one of the most well-known camp meetings is the Cane Ridge one, which Cane Ridge is right down the road here in Kentucky. I think heading toward Paris. It's on my list of places I keep saying I'm going to go to and never have made it to, which is really sad because it's literally right down the road. And I've heard it is an absolutely amazing place to go visit. Talk about hymns. 2nd grade awakening, I'm on page 154. 2nd grade awakening and the camp meetings that followed inspired a love for hymns. The music of great English writers Isaac Watts and Charles Wesley, for example, experienced great popularity. Watts wrote such classics as When I Survey the Wondrous Cross and Joy to the World. So, at this holiday season, the next time you hear somebody singing Joy to the World or you sing Joy to the World, think, that song goes all the way back to the 1800s and the Second Great Revival, 2nd Great Awakening with Isaac Watts. Beginning of American missions. One of the things of the 2nd Great Awakening is it made people more interested in missionary work. 9.2 talks about some of the missionary work that people were doing, wanting to share their newfound faith. Of course, on page 156, you have about Adoniram Judson. If you have been at Calvary for any length of time doing the Abeka history curriculum, you've heard about this dude. Adoniram Judson is in literally, I think, every history book, at least from 4th grade on, maybe from 3rd grade on. And then 9.3 continues to talk about some of the missionary work among among Black Americans. Then talks about Catherine Ferguson, who started a Sunday school and an orphanage. And then the last thing that I want to point out is America's own music, the spirituals. As the black slaves in the South heard sermons from the scriptures, they applied to themselves the stories of the Hebrew children enslaved in Egypt. Suffering the hardships of slavery, many turned to the Lord as the source of their strength. In order to help his children endure their bondage, God gave them the gift of the spirituals, which are recognized as America's greatest contribution to the field of music. I think that's going to show up on a quiz or a test for 6th grade, and 8th grade just had that on a quiz and on a test. That the Negro spirituals are America's greatest, the slave spirituals, however you want to word it, are America's greatest contribution to the field of music. The slaves would sing these melodic, rhythmic songs together as they worked on the plantations. It served a lot of points here. First of all, it helped them to work because of the rhythm. Second of all, it reminded them of what they had been taught in churches or whoever reached out to them to teach them to the gospel. Lastly, as time goes on, some of these songs also had hidden messages in it that would have been part of the underground railroad system. Some of the best loved spirituals are Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, Deep River, and Go Down Moses. The song Go Down Moses is a good example of the comparison between the slavery children and that of the slavery of the Hebrew children and that of the black people. Go down, Moses, way down to Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. When a spiritual spoke of freedom, it referred to the spiritual freedom of life without the Savior. In fact, the slave who was a Christian had more freedom than any free person who was not saved. And then it goes on and talks about the Fisk Jubilee Singers. Now, this is kind of a long video, but like I said, I really didn't feel the need to make 3 different videos, so this kind of summarizes everything you're going to read for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Don't forget, today you are doing Quiz 18, and you are doing Skill Sheet 29. So I will see you probably not until Monday when I make a new video. So see you then.